The launch of FM25, Football Manager 25, has caused a bit of a ruckus in the community, hasn't it? People are seemingly pretty angry or disappointed or worried about the launch of the new game. But I'm just wondering if that's actually the view of everyone, the general Football Manager player, or just a loud minority. To try and get to the bottom of this, I put out a series of polls over on X, and about 10,000 people have voted on each of those polls, which should give us an idea about how the general Football Manager player is feeling about FM25. And in today's video, we're going to go through those results because I think they're quite eye-opening, and I think they explain about how you guys are actually feeling as a majority. And to go through those results, I'm going to be joined by a good friend of mine, Luke, because two minds is always better than one. So let's get into it. Okay, hello everybody, and I am today joined by Amiga Luke. Luke, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for having me on again, Clayts.
Of course, anytime, literally anytime you want, you are more than welcome here. Let me start with a question, because we're going to dive into these polls, and we've got so many responses on them in terms of votes. What's your general feeling then about FM25?
Disappointed at the minute, I think, but I feel like they've never really nailed a launch kind of like teaser. And sometimes I feel like they don't even nail the actual promotion in general. I think a lot of the times the headline features are always a little bit, we're wanting more compared to what they think they're giving us. But I think this year's certainly the worst. And I think that the trouble is because of the expectation that they've given us with, the announcement, however long ago it was, like June 2023. So, it's a good 15 months later. And we haven't seen anything other than a couple of like leaked screenshots. I feel like they've really dropped the ball. And obviously the negativity of bringing things or taking things out of the game is certainly not going to help them. And we kind of like we're wanting Football Manager to have a few wins, and they're not even trying at the minute, and that's what I think is the problem from my point of view. Yeah, I think you nailed it on a few of those things. I feel like a lot of creators are sort of in the same space as this right now, where we're trying to be positive, and I feel like right now I've gone through a few ups and downs, but right now I'm actively trying to feel positive about things, and I think I do. I still think there's a lot of hope in there, especially with the things that they've got coming up, and we know we're going to see a bit more. But it's hard when you're actively trying to be positive, and then constantly there's like, could you have done this a little bit more? Could we just see this? Can we just? And then it does just sort of ebb away a little bit. I just hope it doesn't ebb away completely, right? That's the trouble. I think I struggle seeing positivity when I'm not shown anything to be positive about. Yeah. And I think that's the main problem this year. Yeah, I'm really good at being positive, but even at times I found myself like, come on type of thing. But yeah, let's hopefully try and reinstall a little bit of that, or instill, I should say, a little bit of that positivity today, because this is the tweet that I put out earlier on, and I've got Luke on to come and have a chat basically about the results to these. I said I'm going to run some polls below this, no comments, because I feel like I don't know if you've experienced this, but a lot of the comment sections have been pretty interesting in the lead up to this game. Unfortunately, there's some horrendous people on the internet, but yeah, there is. And there is definitely, I think one of the questions, we'll probably dive into that a little bit more, because I've specifically put it into here to talk about it a little bit. But I said no comments, just straight vibe check on FM25. Are the loud voices we hear the majority? And what are people actually thinking? Because I think we forget sometimes that people who are watching YouTube videos, people who are engaging with like streams, are probably the more hardcore of the audience and the fan base anyway. There are a lot of people that just play this game and probably don't even know that content exists on the internet, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think I wanted to get these polls out there to try and see actually a straight up answer. How are people feeling about it? And that is the first question that I asked. It's got 10,109 votes on it right now, so it's a pretty decent sample size, these polls. And I just straight up asked, are you excited for the release of FM25? The results of that were 66% yes. Now, does that surprise you at all? Massively. I really thought it would be 50-50 or more leaning towards no, because I think I seen your polls and I answered all of the polls after like 2 hours of it being live, and it definitely wasn't that much in favor of yes when I voted. So seeing 66% actually is kind of like, I'm quite pleased with that. It's pleased with the result that that it's showing, because all we do see is negativity, and I think that's what you're trying to establish from this is it just the loud minority, or what is the general understanding. So that's a really good positive result.
It is. There's clearly the company itself clearly has a lot of goodwill in spite of some of the issues. And I think when we go through some of the other results here, you'll see that people still have their issues, but despite all of that, they are still excited about a new game coming out. Does it make you feel a bit better about your job?
Yeah, oh God, definitely. I think that we were all looking at it going, come on, you got to do something or else we're all getting EAFC.
Please no. I'm surprised by this one as well. That's, 2/3 of the people are excited about the release of FM25. Maybe a lot of these people, obviously you can't read them between the lines too much on this. A lot of people, maybe they're excited if they show us something else, or if they provide what they are kind of promising with the game, with the match engine or the graphic engine, for example. But 2/3 of people are excited. I think that is, like you say, really, really positive. And hopefully that just builds with more releases coming up and more features being revealed to us.
I was going to say, I'd be very interested to see if you run the exact same questions sort of a week before this drops, the actual game
once the information's out.
We know everything and we've seen everything, just to compare.
I will do that. Remind me. We should do that for sure.
I'll come back for that one.
Perfect. There we go. We booked him again, viewers. There we go. I'm actually, by the way, I should just say thanks, Luke, for coming on this one today. I dropped this as an idea to come on the video probably about 20 minutes before, and he was like, yeah, sure. So shout out, Luke. Nice one.
Yeah.
Next question. It says, this is, I guess, I suppose it's interesting in itself, but it kind of does link to that one. I said, will you be purchasing FM25? Results are yes, 54.5%. Over 50% of people will be buying FM25 from this poll. 12.8% no, and 32.7% with I've not decided yet. What are your thoughts on that? So
I think the most alarming thing on that one alone is the I've not decided yet, because it's kind of like, you think by now when you're 2 months out from a game, you usually have a very good understanding of what the game is. And with this being a franchise which comes out every year, I know in a lot of my comment section, I get people who still watch Football Manager 2024 content that hasn't bought the game this year because they still just play last year's, for instance. So I think that's where SI need to kind of like get those wins in, because that number is the amount of people who are like, they need to show me something or else I'm just sticking with the game that we got. Because let's be fair, as bad as what the features and lead up to FM24 was, the game's great. This year's game has been fantastic. So the I've not decided yet could be a lot of people going, well, unless they show me something really good, I don't need to upgrade because I'm still enjoying this game.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, that it is the I've not decided yet that I find really interesting here. I'm actually quite interested in it's going to be those ones, that's about 3,000 people on this poll, that we're going to they need to convert to yeses rather than no's at this stage, isn't it? So we'll see, again, if we do that a little bit closer to actual release, maybe we will see different results, but maybe we'll see where those I've not decided yet have put themselves.
Absolutely.
Which could be interesting. Still, more than half of people are they're going to buy it, and that's with very little information at all. And it is a game that you return to every year, but 54.5 in spite of all of the issues around the launch, that's still a decent
really
number.
Not seeing anything.
Quite
impressive still.
Without anything. It is. And maybe what SI are kind of relying on, because they've relied on it every year, perhaps. Okay, next up we have got, will you pre-order FM25? So slightly different. Not will you purchase it, not will you wait and see whether you're going to buy it, but will you pre-order it, so before you've got all the information, before it's actually released. And this is interesting. Only 19.9% saying yes. The majority going with no, 53.6. And I thought this one would have more, but not until I've seen more. Only has 26.5. I was expecting that one to be more votes on it.
Yeah, close to 50%. I thought exactly the same when I first seen it. I'm very curious as to how much the effect of not having the early access being mentioned has affected that poll just individually. Because I think a lot of people would just pre-order the game so that they can play it when the beta or the early access comes out, because you don't get it, unless you pre-order it, really.
Yeah, so they're pre-ordering for the early access rather than
Yes.
committing to buying the game. It's because they actually get something in return for it.
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of like a little reward, isn't it? Oh, you get to play it 2 or 3 weeks before, get your hands on it straight away kind of thing. So,
yeah.
But with it not having any mention whatsoever, there's so many people being no. Whereas I wonder whether if it was, the early access will be as usual, or beta access will be for people who pre-order, how many people then would it have been in terms of percentage-wise as the yes, or not until I've seen more, and maybe the no wouldn't be above 50% out of 10,000 votes, which is quite alarming, really.
It is, yeah. And that's where I think we've seen a bit of a disparity here. That's where the numbers are kind of backing up the general feeling that I think we've experienced. It's in this poll for the first time, I think. Because I think we're kind of surprised by how positive the first 2 were compared to how people seem to be feeling. And which is really what I wanted to establish. Are people actually feeling like this, or is it just that small minority that's very loud? Next one, I think we can move on quite quickly, but I was interested because of the way that the new features seem to look and a lot of references to things like console. I wanted to say, which platform will you play FM25 on? Nearly 90% are playing on PC or Mac. Only 6.1% on the poll at the moment is console. So there seems to be a bit of a focus to try and move some of the game towards being accessible for console. That we had that weird leak that kind of mentioned cross-play, maybe between console to PC. Does this... I mean, I don't think this will surprise you, and I don't know if we can read into this too much, but what are your thoughts on that? There's only 6.1% on console there.
I think console players are the casuals. I think the PC, Mac is us when we were growing up. The hardcores, people who've been playing it for years and years, the people who probably are so invested in the game that, they watch yourself, they watch me, they watch other content creators or streamers. So they maybe have PC, Mac games that they've been playing Football Manager on for ages, because these are probably the people that also hate unlicensed leagues and want to use face packs and stuff that you can't do maybe on the console. And I think that's might be a sign of the casual players are tending to be the more console players, the people who've just picked it up in the last couple of years. Possibly, because 90% nearly from 10,000 votes, and that's
more than I thought it would be. By the way, I thought there'd be way more consoles. You think about the comments that you get on videos. There's a lot of people playing console that are in your comment section. Maybe it's a reflection of the fact that, again, the more hardcore audience will be the ones who will be engaging with tweets like this. Like your casual console players probably aren't following Twitter accounts of Football Manager creators, so maybe it's more of a reflection of that. But I think it's still interesting just how big the majority is there for PC, Mac anyway. Yeah,
and it also gives you kind of like an idea then. All right, so if that's how many 90% of the people is voting on that one, then you kind of like, 90% of the people in all of the votes that for the whole poll is probably going to be the PC gamers, right?
Yeah, so this is actually, we're looking at results here from people who are playing on PC. So take that, when you're looking at the results, kind of apply that context to it a little bit as well. Yeah, you're right. Next up, I asked, what mentioned new feature or improvement means the most to you? And it was another one that had a huge majority on it. I went for, graphic match engine. I kind of combined them as one. I think that's kind of how people see it. 75%. Women's football, 6.9%. New interface, 13.8%. And then any of the other features down at 4.1%. A huge majority for people really looking forward to this graphic match engine, which, of course, we've seen none of.
Yeah. That's the trouble, isn't it? But that, as you can see, this is probably linking to the people that are almost dissatisfied so far and maybe voted for, I'll need to see more if I'm going to buy it, because what they are looking forward to is finally having graphics that don't look like PS2.
Yeah.
We're finally getting what we are told is going to be an enhancement to what we've had for years and years. And we are yet to see any of it yet, despite it obviously being announced 15 months ago. And
it's a long way down that roadmap before they even mention the matchday experience, isn't it? That's going to be a while away.
And I think, I'm surprised how high the new interface is, because we can see it. We've seen screenshots. And although we haven't seen it actually like in a video format where we can see the tiles and stuff working, we can see it. And I know from my point of view, I found that really disappointing looking at it, because I was hoping for something a lot more impressive.
I'm actually going to skip ahead because there was a question specifically about the new interface as I saw the results of this, I was like, oh, I'd like to know the answer to this. So I put another question out here that said, based on the screenshots so far, how do you feel about the new interface? We've got 25.9 on looks great, 36% though, and the most votes on not a fan. So it kind of goes with what you were saying there, that there's not, I don't think there's loads in those screenshots that make you go, oh my word, this is a new era, brand new, this is going to be amazing. I think it looks fine. I don't dislike it, and I think a lot more of my opinion will be based on how it actually plays and how it feels when you're in there playing it. But I don't think there's loads there that's going to go, oh my word, I have to buy this game right now. How exciting.
Definitely. I think I'm kind of 50-50 with it, because I've been screaming for years, can we get a new UI, because the default skin I find is just so bland and boring. And my biggest pet peeve is there's so much wasted space on a screen, and like the text is always so small. You have to pump it up. I like zoom in to see some of the stuff, and you're getting licensed for leagues, and then the face that you're using for it is so small. There's no point in having the license for the league if it's going to be that small. But at the same time, the idea that the menu is no longer going to be down the side, and the very few clips that we've seen or screenshots that we've seen where it's going to be kind of like a new menu at the top, and this whole tile and card system, that side of things, I'm like, okay, I like the idea of how that works. I just wish it looked more appealing. Yeah, and I think that's maybe where I sit with that.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily disagree, I don't think, with any of that. Again, for me, it just comes down to how it plays. Because if it needs to look that way because of the way that the screen flow and the way that you actually play in the game, and if that's really good, I'm willing to put up with a bit of wasted space here, or it not looking the best, because actually it's so responsive and it's so intuitive to the way that you play it. So they have to go hand in hand, and I don't think just seeing screenshots of something... I don't think they're selling the new game based on those screenshots as high as maybe they think they are. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that I'm not excited for it at the same time. Like, I can still be like, this could still be amazing. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, because if you really think about it, how much when you're playing Football Manager are you playing using the UI compared to like the actual match engine? I would probably say, I mean, for me, I barely use the match engine at all because I do a lot of simulations. But if you're somebody who plays every single game, I still think you're only really using the match engine 30% of the time that you're playing the game. Yeah. So majority of the time you're spending in the menus, which that's where you need the game to look as most appealing as possible.
But is that a chicken and an egg thing? Are you only playing a certain... True. Are you only like not playing many games because actually it doesn't look great? Like if it goes the other way, you're excited to get into games because it's so... That's where all the story comes from. I don't disagree, but yeah, I think if it was all better, it's good news, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I was never expecting us to have like this revolutionary new menu system, which, it looked phenomenal. I think I was just looking at it, I just thought, surely it wouldn't look like the same game. Because I feel like if they announced that they never were using Unity, I would expect those screenshots to be what we'd be looking at.
I see what you mean. Because it was
like, oh, we're going to be using Unity, a brand new graphics and match
new era.
Exactly. And then it's like, oh, but it still looks the same.
Yeah. So it doesn't actually change much for us as a player.
No. And I think that's why 12% of people have put, what's the difference in that poll? Yeah.
Next up, and I think this one's a contentious one, and I think actually the results are quite interesting. How do you about the removal of international management? I think I meant how do you feel about the removal of international management? 10.6% gutted, 26.4% annoyed, 27.3%, which is just an emoji that I used, and then 35% of never bothered with it. Actually, progressively, as people care less, there's more votes on there. So the majority on this one being never bothered with it. So people, in terms of these poll results, don't care about the removal of international management as maybe some of the comments seem to suggest, the very angry ones at least.
I think the trouble is international management has always been kind of broken.
Yeah.
It's never been like a good mode. If they were taking out like a really good mode, if they had like shown some love to international management and maybe improved the way it is and made it less bland and boring and made it more interesting to be an international manager, then I think you'd have far more people be in the gutted or annoyed category, because it's something like a feature which you can almost like, all right, I've done enough of club football now, let's give international management a go. But I think anybody who's played the game within the last like 10 to 15 years, if you've ever done international management, you've either... The only really interesting parts is when you go into a World Cup or a Euros or the Copa America. If you're outside of that, it's kind of just clicking away and just waiting for something to happen.
Even like choosing your squad in between that becomes like, well, it's not even like, it is, but even like you sit there and go, oh, I've got to do this again. There's parts of the game where you just don't want that. It's a game. It's supposed to be an escape from like, and I know that we are kind of martyrs for this type of torture. Like we put ourselves in a situation where we are, using a spreadsheet all the time, but even I can't be bothered with doing international squad announcements. I don't like international football in real life.
We're about to go into a break now, and I'm kind of like, only 7 games into the Premier League. Why is this happening? 2 international breaks, by the way.
Oh. Anyway, we don't need to get into that right now. Maybe that's another video.
Yeah.
Next up, and this is an interesting one. I said, are you worried about this FM release? So really trying to tune into what is the what is the general Football Manager player feeling like. The majority on this one was yes, a little. 47.4% are feeling a little bit worried about this FM release. And I think this is where I'd put myself, to be honest, personally. 18.7% on yes, very. 22.3%, and this is maybe those casuals a little bit more, no, should I be? And then 11.7% on nah, relaxed. I don't know if we can read too much, because I think based on just, if you actually think about these people voting on this, they're seeing a lot of content from creators who are suggesting that they're worried. They're seeing a lot of tweets about it. They're seeing the comments on different videos who are up in arms about it. I think it'd be just human nature to be a little bit worried about these things.
Yeah, I agree. I think the trouble is, like, we kind of obviously we have an influence on how the community feels. If we're all coming out, because all I've seen is basically all of us kind of be very worried about it, that's going to rub off on the hardcore community who obviously watch all of us and are invested in the game themselves. I think before I used to watch Football Manager content or used to do it myself, I would be in the no should I be category, because I would play it every year.
I think so too. Yeah, same.
I wouldn't be like, oh my god, they've just dropped the trailer for Football Manager.
I wouldn't even know new features until I got the game. Like, I wouldn't be engaged with that at all. No.
Yeah, I don't even think I played an early access or a beta until like FM15, because I don't even think I knew about it. So
I remember playing, when it was the big change into Champman 4, and it was like the huge new engine, and that you go and read anything about it now and everyone's talking about how it was a complete disaster. Yeah. I played that game and enjoyed it. I had no idea.
Because you had no influence to say that it was bad, I guess.
Exactly.
I think, we might be at the cause of that being slightly higher than maybe it would be if we weren't all making videos saying we're all worried about it. I put myself as voted as yes, very, because it's my job.
Yeah, so there's different reasons to be worried about it there, isn't there?
Yeah. So, this is what I'm paying my house and feeding my family with. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm really worried because I need to see something. Whereas people who are just like, this is a game that I've invested all my life in, but it's not my livelihood. Yes, I am a little worried. And people who are kind of like, yeah, I'm a little bit, I like playing that game every year. Should I be worried? Like, I know I haven't seen anything yet, but, they've never failed us really, which I think is one of those arguments for we shouldn't be worried too much, because, all right, they've been open and honest. Yeah, they again, like I mentioned, they've never been very good at promoting the game.
Yeah,
I don't think. Whenever time they go, this is a brand new feature, and you look at it going, this is not as big as what you're making it out.
You said this last year, and
but every time we play the game, we're like, this is a great game. So
maybe this time there's a little bit more concern, because we know it's going to be different, and they keep talking about it being different. I know we've discussed it, maybe it looks the same, but they have built up the idea that this is going to be a completely new game, and we really liked the old game, even if we want change and development, but we really liked the old game. So if this is going to be different and they've not sold it very well, maybe you are concerned because you're like, it might be bad different rather than good different.
That's the trouble, because you're kind of relying on every year. Normally it's like, well, how can they get it wrong? They just basically update the database and add a couple of things, whereas this is like, no, they really could get it wrong because it's a brand new everything for them.
Yeah. Only a few more. Next up, and I think this one is very, especially when we consider that this might be slightly more casual people voting on this. I asked the question, how do you feel about Sport Interactive's communication about FM25? The options were perfect, good but could be better, needs serious improvement, or abysmal. Only 3% of 9,000 odd votes on this said perfect, which I think is eye-opening.
I don't know how many Sports Interactive people voted here, but I feel like that was a 3%.
Yeah, what's 3% of 9,000? Because that's how many.
Yeah.
Good but could be better, 35.1%. Needs serious improvement, 46.1%, and that was the majority. And still 15% of 9,000 people said it's been abysmal. Where would you fit yourself in on this?
I voted for needs serious improvement on this because I remember when it was worse.
Yeah.
So they have improved. I don't think they're at the best of what they have been. I think a couple of years ago was when they were at their best. I think in terms of communication with us as well as creators, sometimes I think they overlook how much we can influence the community, or how much, because if all of us turned around and said, like, we're not buying the game, you shouldn't either, they'd be screwed for sales, because that would, you imagine if Zealand put up a video saying, don't buy the game.
In this day and age now, I think exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's only going to increase as well as the years go by.
Exactly, as the game gets bigger. But I think, like, in terms of the communication that they give for the whole community, we've had. I think the trouble is the communication recently has just all been negative. So it's like, well, it needs serious improvement because you're not giving us anything to like. Yeah. It's like, this is going to be bad, and this is also bad, and we're not going to show you this yet. Here's our big announcement. We're not showing you anything. Here's a roadmap, and we've only set a date for one thing we're going to show you. What was the point in it then? So,
do you think it could be deliberate, intentional? Do you think there is a world where, from this point on now, it's all building towards these bigger and better updates, and it is become positive? And do you think they can turn the tide on this opinion that about FM25? Can you see a world where that happens?
I mean, they can certainly turn the tide, because every year they've kind of proved us wrong with where we're questioning how good the game's going to be, and it has been good. I don't know. I don't think it's intentional though.
No,
this bad.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's an actual plan, does it?
Yeah, because I think you would want that win. You'd want that early win of look how good this game's going to be this far out. But you're asking people to pre-order a game and you're not showing them anything. And I think that's the big trouble for us right now. We're all a bit like, no, come on, this works both ways. We ain't pre-ordering it. Show us why we should be pre-ordering the game. Even the trailer didn't even show anything, like a really distant screenshot. And it's kind of like you're looking for the reason why, and the only thing that we can all come up with is it's not ready yet, which is why we're all a little bit worried.
Yeah. What if the match engine, the graphic engine in the match engine looks amazing? Does that change everything?
Oh, absolutely. If they come out, whenever it is that they're showing the match engine or the graphics engine, and they go, this is what it looks like, and you're looking at it and you're going, wow, that's like a vast improvement. Looks insane. Everything looks really fluid. Kind of looks like a real football match, how you'd want it to be. And I think the excitement is just completely flipped. 100%.
I'm going to say, I'm hopeful. Maybe that's what they're relying on. Maybe they know this. It's in their back pocket. They've had these issues, and it's been, delays because of the development, but they know it looks really good. So they know that they can get all these negatives out because it's going to look amazing. Like, that could happen, I think. I'm not sure it will. Because what is your expectation for the match engine, the graphic engine? What do you think that actually looks like? Out of 10 being like FIFA, FC25 graphics, 0 being FM23, where on that scale do you think it's going to sit?
I think we're looking at between 5 and 7, anywhere around that ballpark range. I don't think it's going to be as good as FC25 because of the financial implications of trying to make it look like that, plus of the intricacies of having the attributes work in a match engine graphically. So I think we're looking at somewhere between that 5 and 7 of it's going to be a big improvement. But I think the reason why it's we haven't been shown yet is either it's not working properly, or they can't, or it's just not ready yet.
Yeah, what do you think is not working? Do you think it's the match engine and the graphics in the match, or do you think it's the interface?
I mean, we know every single year, as soon as they tweak something in the match engine using their own engine, which they've worked on for years and years, it was kind of like, we'd have bugs in the match engine, you'd have mistakes from keepers, or, something silly would be happening because of a slight tweak that they've made from the previous year. Like, and now imagine putting that into a brand new engine and starting from scratch. Like, there's gonna be some problems.
Yeah.
Which I think is the reason why we're all thinking, well, if it's delayed and you're not showing us, you must be hitting those problems right now.
Yeah. I think 5 to 7 is a little bit ambitious. I think if we're thinking between FM23 as my example and FC25, I'm thinking like a 3-4, honestly.
Really?
But I don't think I'd be disappointed with that. I think that's realistic, and I think even that is a big improvement, and I think something to build on in the future.
Definitely.
I'm not hopeful that it's going to be wow you necessarily, but
just
as
a
long as
forward step would
as
be
long
nice,
as it's
right?
like a chunky forward step. As long as you've got a chunky forward step, I think I'm genuinely excited about that and happy with that.
I agree, because then you just know, like, all right, you've got time. Hopefully you'll have more income and money to put back into it to keep improving it, and we can see an improvement.
They've got the platform to build on then, because of the engine, because of Unity, etc. Yeah. Next up, we've got, how do you feel about the removal of a player's weight on the profile? I thought this has been such a talking point that I wanted to see what the general consensus on it was. 9.2% said immersion ruined. 27.8% said bit annoying. 49.2%, the majority said who cares. I think that's kind of where I am. Maybe I'm in between who cares and a bit annoying. And then weight was there before. I know that it's kind of like, it seems like the popular way to be like, who cares about weight? I'm sort of like, I'm not sure it needed to be removed. I felt like even if it was inaccurate, at least it's on there. But I'm definitely not on the, like, the people are really angry about this. A very small minority are very angry about this. I don't think it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, but it is a bit weird maybe to look at a player profile screen where you want to know all about this player and you can't see their weight as an athlete. But I also understand why. Like, their reasoning was, I'm annoyed that they tied it in with women's football, because I think actually there's loads of examples of in men's football. If you look at Transfermarkt and if you look at the Arsenal website, Kai Havertz's weight is different on both. So actually there's as many issues in men's football as there is in women's football. But I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm in between who cares and it is a bit annoying. What about you?
Yeah, I put who cares for it, and it never bothered me at all. I got a feeling in the poll, the people who's put immersion ruined are kind of like bantering.
Yeah, there probably is that, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe the people who are genuinely affected it probably have put bit annoying. Yeah. I don't understand, like, because it doesn't affect anything in the game.
No.
And like you mentioned, the reason why they gave it, they kind of linked it with the women's football, which is probably it's probably the correct reason why they've done it, but probably not the right thing for them. Exactly, because then you're just given them more targets to be aimed at with the women's football inclusion.
Yeah.
Whereas like the men's football, I mean, my weight's changed massively within the last year. I've gone up, I've gone down. Like it's, that happens to men and women. So I think it's one of those things. It never really made much difference anyway in the game. Just take it out. Maybe just not make so much of a big deal about it. If they just never said anything,
honestly, who
really would have gone, oh my god, I want my money back?
Especially, I still wonder, like, it still must be in there under the hood somewhere because it links to the strength and stuff. So I wonder if you are able to like make new skins for the game, I wonder if it will just be straight back on a profile anyway. I guess maybe skinning is going to be an issue anyway with the new interface and everything anyway in itself, which will be an interesting time. But yeah, I think who cares is probably about the right place for that, and I kind of agree with the community on this one with their 8,000 people who voted. Yeah,
I agree. 50%. That's a good. I'm happy it's closer to 50% of that one than anything else.
Yeah, two more. More of a technical one. This one, 'cause I think there is a talking point in this. Are you worried about the minimum system requirements for FM25? Of course, they have gone up. You are going to need a better PC rig to be able to play the game. I still don't think the minimums are still not very high if you compare them to lots of games. The recommended though, I think are actually pretty like you have to have a decent PC to meet the recommended requirements, which is potentially an issue. Maybe a bit of foresight into what the game is going to look like and play like. Hopefully it means that it's going to be, labor intensive because it's such a visually pleasing game. I guess we'll find out. But 23.7% said yes, I'm worried about this because my PC is a toaster. Over 50%, 50.9% said no, I'll be fine. And then 25% hadn't realised that they changed it at all and said, are they different? So is this something you think people need to be worried about?
I hope it's something that people stop asking me.
Yeah. Is this laptop going to work? I don't know.
Yeah, I am terrible with system requirements. Even my friends will message you. I'm like, dude, there's no point asking me. I have no idea. Like, somebody else built my PC. Can I pause you there?
Viewers watching this, can you all ask Luke whether your laptop will be good enough for FM25, please? So just get those in the comments down below. Thank you very much. Cheers. Continue.
It's got to the point where it's just like, I'll end up just ignoring it because I have no idea. I'm so sorry. Somebody else built my PC. I don't know what was in it.
Same.
So it's kind of like, I hope it's not going to affect people too much to the point where there's like, my laptop ain't going to work now. What laptop do I need? Because I won't be able to give you an answer. But I feel like, obviously, for us, it's probably okay. This is, what we do for money. So we've probably got a good enough rig to be able to handle this and other games that we enjoy playing on PC. And I think PC gamers who play Football Manager are not necessarily your bog standard PC gamers who have a lot of high intensity equipment.
I think a lot of people play on a laptop.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which you can sit on a sofa with your partner while they're watching something, and you can still casually, I used to do it myself. Like, oh yeah, let's watch something together, and then I'll just sneak the laptop on my lap. And
just as an aside, wasn't that always the dream growing up? Did you ever? 100%. Do you remember having that where you're like, one day we're going to be able to play FM on the move?
And I always think, like, when you first get in relationships with someone, you're like, I wonder how long it can be until I can pull out the laptop while we're spending time together.
See what their reaction's like.
And you'd be like, this is now normal.
They're right on this.
She's so invested in this film, she hasn't noticed. So
I think there may be a little bit of, there will be some people who are like, hang on a minute, I can't actually play this on my laptop, which will be an interesting one, especially as 90% were playing on PC or Mac, which includes obviously laptops.
Could this be the main reason why maybe a lot of people switch to a console?
Maybe that number will go up from that poll before because they'll be able to play the game, especially if the game is very similar across both platforms.
And with like licenses of the Premier League, I think is a massive thing this year. Because majority of the people in the UK will be wanting to do UK league specifically. So you know, when you go into the Premier League as like, someone from the Championship or whatever, and then none of the badges are right other than yours, you're like, oh, how annoying.
It isn't great,
But
especially on console with that
included.
You can't fix it. Definitely. Final one. I know this is somebody left a comment and kind of wanted to see the difference between last year. So I did a question that says, did you pre-order last year's game, FM24? And then I gave the options of yes, and I will pre-order 25. Yes, but I won't pre-order 25. No, I didn't order last year's game and I won't be ordering this year's game. And then this one had no votes on it, basically. No, I didn't order last year's game, but I will be pre-ordering this year's game. The most popular answer on those, over 50%, was no, I didn't pre-order last year and I won't be pre-ordering this year, which I don't know if that tells us too much, but maybe the fact that yes, I did pre-order last year, but I won't pre-order this year has a quarter of the votes. That means that they've lost those pre-orders. So that's maybe interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was quite surprising with that one. And to be fair, I was most surprised that 50% is no and not. I would have thought this as a game, because of the early access, the beta, as it was before, I thought more people would be pre-ordering, and it seems like actually there's only 3,000 votes on this one because I did it more recently, but interesting that there's less pre-orders on this than I thought there would be. Yeah, I agree, because I always think as well, whenever I'm doing like an early access video, I tend to think, right, as long as I get 75% of the views that I'd normally would, because that's kind of the number in my head that I think people who pre-order and are aware the game is out. Yeah. Because I knew before, like, even I used to do content, the people I used to watch, whether it be like Jack, Kev, or, Second Yellow Card, I wouldn't watch until they started doing their main series because I didn't know there was a beta or an early access.
You'd go to play the game, and then as you're playing the game, you'd go and then see what was out there in terms of content, wouldn't you? And those things would be linked together.
So I'm quite surprised by that number.
Yeah. Those are the questions. How does that make you feel generally? Do these match up with how you feel like people are feeling, or are there some differences there? Do you feel like people are maybe a little bit more relaxed than we thought they might be? What's your kind of gauge of those?
I mean, I think because we come from the content creator world, we always understand that the loud minority is the one that, shouts loudest. So all the negativity that we have seen around women's football, etc., and stuff like that is kind of what we know.
Did I do the women's
just,
football one?
You didn't. No, I was going to mention that. I didn't want to leave it on purpose.
We'll leave it on the No, I really wasn't. The thread that I've got it on, we need to go to the women's football one and do that. Let's just come back to that, because you know what? That's a really important one. I didn't leave it out on purpose. I'm not dodging that, I promise you. I did ask a question. It has 10,257 votes. I said, what is your opinion on the introduction of women's football? 3 options: brilliant, great but not for me, and hate it. 55% on great but not for me, 33.5% on brilliant, 11.3% of 10,000 people hate the introduction of women's football. I think that is just, I mean, it doesn't sit right with me, and I'm not particularly happy with that one. But I feel like if you feel like it's great but it's not for me, I'm completely fine if that's how you feel about it too.
Yeah. Absolutely, because I think, like, if I was not a content creator, would I play women's football? I'd probably give it a go. I'd probably have a browse around, have a look at it. Would I be constantly doing women's football saves? Probably not, because I think unless it had like features which was different to the men's game to make it very different, familiarity would always bring me back to the men's football. Yeah. But as a content creator, I'm thinking, oh, great, because then there's so many possibilities that I can do for different videos, etc. Having the women's football game on there, I might even get into women's football a lot more than what I do in real life already. So that's fantastic, which is why I've put brilliant. And since they first announced it, I've always been quite excited for it. And the people who go, oh, you know, in the comments, because I'm sure you've had it as well. Oh yeah, it's like, oh, they're lying. They're content creators. They have to say that. No, genuinely, I'm really looking forward to browsing the women's football game, because the thing I enjoy most about every Football Manager is discovering new players, new wonder kids. And now we're given a whole new league in terms of, well, a whole new world of football that I don't know nothing about.
How do you know so much about football? For me, Football Manager is right up there in answering that question. And I've had so many conversations with people about real life women's football, especially like on stream. A lot of like my viewers during Twitch streams and things are talking about the women's football that's going on, and I feel like so outside of that conversation because I just don't know enough. And then to actually, I've got no in on that one as a fan, but I'd love to know a bit more, and I can't join those conversations about football, which feels really alien because that is every conversation basically for people like you and I. Yeah, this is how I know that I'm going to be like, and I know so much more even from when FIFA put the women in. Was it last year? I know so many more female women's footballers because of FIFA that I see them playing now and I'm like, oh, Salma Basha there, she's a great left back on FIFA. Like I'm so excited. Association. Yeah, I'm so excited to have a bit more knowledge because of FM, and I will try a women's football save because I think it's really interesting to learn about those. And for me, I was like, this would be really cool on say like a journeyman save where you get like a women's team and then you can go to it and you're back and forth between the two games. Like, it's just an extra option. It's only a good thing in my head that it's a bigger world and there's more to do, and it's only an addition rather than this. I don't see the negativity, especially when you actually think about how completely different team, and it seems like a data team rather than a development team. And I know you can make the argument about resources, but I just don't agree with that necessarily. I don't think they put resources that could have been used on the game development into women's football, because I think if you think about how they do this, it's researchers who provide all the data and then it's just a simple task of data input. Maybe there's a tiny degree of it. I just don't think it.
But then they hired a brand new team for it.
Yeah, and maybe
which they might not have done if they weren't included anyway. So yeah, I always see it as like you didn't really lose any resources.
No, that's how I'm seeing it too. I know you could make the argument going, yeah, but they spent money on that new team. You could have spent money on this, but these are ifs, buts, and maybes, and I'm dealing with absolutes, and I think it's absolutely good.
And the argument that I had with this, which to be fair, I wouldn't argue with people in the because I just think, no, you're just being sexist. Yeah, but
a lot of the time,
the argument that I would have if somebody genuinely said this to my face would be, well, where were you complaining when they were adding the Japanese leagues last year or the Latvian leagues the year before when we were worried then? Well, you go in, well, why are they using resources to bring in the Latvian league compared to sorting out the match engine and near post corners? Yeah, like there is a genuine conversation point about if you genuinely feel like the resource distribution, like maybe there's a gaming development conversation to have there. But if it is just because you don't like women's football and you don't want to engage with it,
But you don't have to. It's just the thing. I'm like, you just don't have to, and I don't. That's the part that's really difficult for me because okay, you don't like women's football. That's fine. Like I don't like fencing. There's a really good like there's loads of stuff out there.
You?
Like but I'm not gonna. I don't have to tell everybody this as a fact, but. I feel like this one's been done to death a little bit as a conversation point anyway, and I definitely didn't try and leave this one out. I wasn't leaving it out there to.
I was like,
just
you skipped over that one.
Just skipped over a really good, interesting one there. But no, I didn't want today the whole. I didn't want the comment section necessarily on this video to be about women's football because I think there's loads more interesting conversation points in this, and I know you kind of touched upon it before I interrupted when I realized that I missed the women's football one, but for me this kind of eases a few of my concerns. This makes me feel, do you know what, there is a world where this can still be a really positive release. There are still people excited about the game, people are still buying it, people are still pre-ordering it, even if it wasn't as much, and people want to see like the biggest one on what do you want to see as in terms of a new feature was the match engine. That's still to be shown to us, and maybe once that gets shown, if it looks good, maybe we could have a really positive release. Let's hope so. Any final thoughts?
No, I completely agree with you. Like I think I'm still really massively excited for this FM. I have been since they very first announced it because they haven't given me any reason to not be excited about it. They've just given me reasons to worry about it. And I think those two things can happen at the same time. Yeah, I can still be worried about the game but still be excited about it at the same time because, as you say, they've literally not shown us a scrap of anything, really. And they could come out in a few weeks' time because it's TBA, it's to be announced when they are going to show us, which again was one of the most annoying things ever. But still, to be announced, they could go, here is what the gameplay is going to look like, and we're all going to go, wow, that looks great, or yes, thankfully it's an improvement. That's the two options that I'm really hoping for. We really don't want it to go, it looks exactly the same as FM24. Like, what was the whole point in this? Because we're just getting the game 2 weeks later. So, yeah, we've still got a lot to be positive about. But we can be worried at the same time. And I think that's the most important thing. Yeah. Until we've actually played the game and it's rubbish, you can still be really excited about it because we don't know at that stage. And hopefully, as I said before, it's really good. Luke, thanks so much for coming on. If it is really crap, you've got any ideas what we can do as content creators instead, then by all means. Get them in the comments down below because we may need them. Luke, thank you so much for coming on. Big shout out over to you. Go and check out his channel. You know what it is. The links are over there in the description as well. Most importantly, hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.